Hey girl. Yes, you. Are you in need of a project that's going to take less than 3 days because you're tired of these tedious 2 week projects that's taking up all your time and giving you stress? I got something for y'all. Step into my office. Today, we are going to be working on this granny square poncho, aka Teresa.
Teresa. This is Teresa right here. No, it's Teresa.
If you know, you know. I know I said I was going to do this tutorial a long time ago, like 2 months ago. I know. But y'all waited long enough, and I appreciate y'all patience because we're not even gonna get into that. I hope you guys enjoy this project. Like I said, it's very easy, very quick, honestly, if you have the time, and just also a cute addition to your closet. Who doesn't love a good poncho? I'm gonna go ahead and keep this short and sweet because, like I said earlier, you guys have waited long enough, and I appreciate your patience. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the video. So supplies needed today is a 6mm hook, scissors, and of course your yarn. Starting with the slip knot, I'm going to begin chaining 4 to start off my granny square. And please feel free to skip ahead if you already know how to start off a granny square and make one. I just will be going slower for the people who do need slower visuals. Now after you tighten that slip knot, you're going to chain 4. We're then going to slip stitch into that first chain, making a circle. You can also make a magic circle if that's easier for you. To begin the granny clusters, we're going to yarn over, then chain 3. Yarn over, then create 2 double crochets in the middle of the circle. This will be your first granny cluster. Now I'm chaining 2, creating 3 more double crochets, so that will be my second cluster, and I'll repeat that until I have 4 clusters total. Once you finish your 4 clusters, you're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into that very first 3 chains that we did at the beginning. So this is the first row completed. After that, we're now going to chain 3 and then create 2 double crochets into that same corner that we're working out of. Now, usually I do chain 1 in between my clusters after the first row, but this time I'm going to go straight into that next corner and do 3 double crochets. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want this project to be as see-through. So you can still do a chain 1 in between, however, I just want to explain why I don't do it anymore. After creating 3 double crochets in that corner, you're now going to chain 2 and create 3 more double crochets into the exact same corner. Now we're going to repeat exactly what we just did into the next corner and the corner after that, and then I'll meet you back at the corner that we originally started in. So now that we've made it back to that very first corner, we're now going to create 3 double crochets, and then after that we'll chain 2 and slip stitch into that very first chain 3 we did to finish off that corner. And that is how we'll start and end every row. Now once I finish this row, I am going to chain 1 and knot off my yarn, and I am going to be doing this every other row since I will be changing color. Now this is optional, of course, so you don't have to do this. I just want to explain what I'm doing. So now I'm just tying on my new yarn color, and I'll be starting this row off the exact same way by chaining 3. Once again, I'll be starting off each row the exact same, so now I'm going to create 2 more double crochets in that same corner. So for row 3 and every row after this, you are going to have spaces in between each corner, and in those spaces, you're just going to create 3 double crochets in between those corners. After finishing that middle space, I'm now going to move on to the corner, and now I'm going to create my corners the exact same way by doing 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets. So the good thing about granny squares is the fact that they're so repetitive, which makes it pretty easy for just about everyone. So with that being said, I'm not going to go into too much more detail with each row since it is so repetitive. And I don't want to bore you guys, so I will be speeding up the process visually. I just want to give that heads up. Also, my allergies are really bad right now, so my voice is going in and out. I just don't want to annoy anyone with my voice, so I just want to give that heads up. If I do sound tired or raspy, that is the reason why. I'm not annoyed or anything. I'm just not feeling the best right now. But I just wanted to make sure I'm being verbally helpful since I wasn't that helpful in my other videos. You know, I do read your guys' comments and I try to take in everyone's consideration. So I did just want to give that heads up as well. Back to the granny square, I did do 2 rows of each color, and again, I started and ended my rows the exact same way. Again, there'll just be more spaces in between the corners, so just want to get that heads up for anyone that wants to work ahead at all. Okay, so I just finished my last one. This might be your guys' first one. But before you move on to your next one, keep in mind, I did 10 rows for this one. This one's gonna be slightly smaller than the blue one that I originally did, Teresa. Teresa is 11 rows total, so that is the difference. It also looks even bigger because this one has been washed. It was blocked right after I made it. It's had more work done to it, but I wanted this one to fit a little bit smaller and not as baggy as the blue one, so that's why I did 10 rows. I probably could have went for 8 rows, but that'd have been too small because I still want to be able to cover my chest area. Just keep that in mind. This one will be a little bit smaller than the original blue one that I made. And now after you finish your first square, I already finished my other ones, but now you're going to do 9 more, okay? 9 more squares total, the exact same. You can switch it up. This is when you want to have fun with it. Have fun, girl. You guys can switch it up, do it colorful, do different, color variations throughout the squares. Does not matter how you do it, but I just want to keep you guys in mind that this one is a little bit smaller compared to the blue one. So, and when you are measuring these, just obviously make sure you're putting the square up to your chest because it will be hanging off your shoulders, so it won't be like up to your neck or anything, but it will be hanging down a little bit lower. So you just want to make sure it covers your boobs. Like, I'm a smaller chest girl, so like I don't really have much to cover. If you know you have like a bigger chest or anything like that, just make sure you're keeping that in mind when you are, adding or removing rows or anything like that. Just try to keep that in mind because I don't want it to be too small or too big for someone. If you're also smaller chest like me, I wouldn't go no more than 11 rows. If I'm being honest, I don't think you need that big unless you really want it super baggy. Up to you. Once you guys get 10 squares done, go ahead and jump back into this video and I'm going to show you guys how to start joining them, which should be really easy. So yeah, we're now going to make 2 panels. Each panel is going to consist of 5 squares each. If you already have a method of how you like to join your squares, go ahead and do so. Just make sure while you're doing that, when you are stitching them together, make sure your right sides are facing each other. So you want your wrong sides facing outward and your right sides facing each other. Actually, I forgot I already did a panel, so I'm just going to show you guys it. This is how we're connecting them. And you just want to make sure your right sides are facing the same way. We're going to do that with both panels. So to begin attaching my squares, I'm now going to attach my yarn in the corners of both squares. Again, making sure the right sides are touching each other. You're now going to reinsert your hook, pull your yarn through, chain 1, and then we'll begin slip stitching into the back loops only of both squares. As you're doing this, just make sure your tension isn't too tight or else your sweater will start looking bunched up. So just make sure you keep your tension a little loose, but we're just going to work our way all the way down, and then I'll meet you guys back once we start attaching the third square. Once you make it to the end, you're now going to chain 1 and then cut and knot off your yarn. So this is how it should be looking so far. So we're just going to keep repeating this process until we have 5 squares stitched together. Again, we'll just keep slip stitching down the seam, corner to corner for each square. So I'm starting each square the exact same. I'm pulling my yarn through, knotting it on, and then I'll begin slip stitching as well. Okay, so after you sew all of your squares together, you're going to repeat that on with both panels. So each panel should be made up of 5 squares. After you do that, you're going to lay them on top of each other, right sides facing each other, wrong sides facing outward. So this is my wrong side. Just like how we stitched the squares together, we're now going to leave the middle squares open, and we're going to stitch both panels together on both sides. However you stitch your squares together for each panel, you're now going to stitch both sides together, again leaving the middle squares open because this is where your neck will be and this is where the opening of your body will be. Just make sure you sew the top So this will be for the top of your arms. This will be where your head and neck will be. And then sew this part for the other side of your arms, leaving the bottoms open because you want to try it on before you start sewing. Now, since I'm smaller, I probably can get away with just doing that exact same thing I did to the top to the bottom. But since my squares are smaller than the blue one, I'm gonna try it on and then I'll let you guys know where I start sewing from the bottom. But this is where you do want to try it on and make sure that you don't sew it too small or too big for your liking. So make sure you're just trying it on as you go. Okay, sorry for the weird angle, but I'm gonna put this one on just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is the top that I'm talking about. This is the first part that we're gonna do. So this is where you're going to sew. You're gonna do that on both sides. This is where I sewed from like right where the square ends on both sides. That's what I'm gonna do on the one that we're working on. Now for the bottom, this is why I said to try it on because I don't want mine to be snug. I want it to be like loose. But I did a little bit outside the square. So as you can see, I started sewing where the light blue lines up, that second color change in the square. That's where I sewed on both sides. So it could be a little bit more wider and looser, if that makes sense. But yeah, for now, we're just going to work on closing up the arms, which again will be this, and then we'll start working on the bottom. But I hope that makes sense. I cannot stress this enough. Please, please, please try on your work as you go. I just don't want anyone to make it too small or too big and then have to start over, even though it's not a lot of work. But just to save you the time, just make sure you're trying your work as you go. I just really want to point out that we're not going to do the top the same as the bottom just because you want more space at the bottom than your shoulder opening will be. But yeah, let's continue. So like I said before, I'm just attaching the panels at the arm and I'm using the exact same method by slip stitching both panels together. Once you make it to those seams that you worked on previously, just make sure you try not to go too tight or too loose. Just try your best to line it up as best as you can. It won't be perfect, but I just want to point out that that is okay. Mine wasn't super perfect, but you can't even tell once you finish your project. So I just wanted to give that little heads up. Once you finish one side, you're just going to chain one, cut and knot off your yarn, and then you're just going to make sure you knot it off a couple times, and then we're going to turn our work and create the exact same process on the other side. So now I have the top and the bottom sewn. To give you guys an update, I believe I said I was going to do 3 or 4 granny stitches or granny clusters over on this square, each one, to give myself more width, but I wanted to actually tighter, so I just went just one cluster away from the corner. That's what got this type of fit, which I like a lot better. Keep in mind, because obviously I'm not going to always have clothes on under this, or a dress. Obviously I'm not going to wear a dress under this. I'm going to do a border now for the top and for the bottoms. It'll just be a little bit longer than the top because I just want to be able to cover my chest. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'll see you guys in the next clip. So to create a border for the top part, which is the neckline, I'm just going to attach my yarn, and you can pretty much attach it anywhere. I'm going to then bring up my yarn, chain 2, and I'll create a half double crochet into each stitch going around. Then once I make it back around, I'm just going to slip stitch into that very first 2 chains that I did at the beginning, and then I'll chain 1 and knot off my yarn. Now I'm just going to flip my work to begin working on the bottom portion. I'm going to use black yarn instead. I'm still going to attach my yarn the exact same way by tying it on, and then I'll bring up my yarn and chain 2. Instead of doing half double crochets like I did at the top, I'm actually going to do double crochets into each stitch going around. And I will also be doing 2 rows of double crochets. So after I slip stitch, I'm going to chain 2, and then once again, I'll be creating another row of double crochets. After my 2 rows of double crochets, I'm going to create a row of a scalloped border. So for that, I'll chain 1, create 1 single crochet in that exact same stitch, then I'll skip 1 stitch, and then create 5 double crochets into the next. After your 5 double crochet, we'll just keep repeating that by skipping 1, and then we'll go into the next stitch and create 1 single crochet and just keep going forward with that. So after this single crochet, we'll skip another stitch, work 5 double crochets into the next, again skip that next stitch, and then create 1 single crochet into the next stitch. So right now I'm just creating my last 5 double crochets, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that very first single crochet I did at the beginning. After I knotted my yarn off, I did do the exact same border to the sleeves off camera. So now I'm just steaming my project just to get that nice flow, and of course I'm loving it. And just like that, we are all done. I hope you guys love this project just as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting as always. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And really want to say thank you guys so much for 12,000 subscribers. I cannot thank you guys enough. Like, I really do appreciate it so much. I have more for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.